We can actually graph pacing. So we can graph what pacing should look like. And we can also graph what it shouldn't look like. So let's talk about faulty pacing. And this is probably what a lot of you do. This is probably where a lot of you are sitting. These are the mistakes that most people make. Because remember, the biggest mistake that I believe is made by CrossFitters from a pacing point of view is using an energy system which is too intense for the length of event that they are competing in. Yeah, too aggressive, too high yield, therefore the negative byproducts, they hit a threshold, they hit the wall. We can actually graph time per round and intensity. So let's call this here, this is intensity or effort. And we'll just put it on a scale of 0 to 10. That's how hard you're working. And I've actually done this with athletes where I'll record how hard are you working after each round, what's your heart rate, what was your round split. And this is what it tends to look like. And this is round time here. So let's talk about round time first. So this is in seconds. And these are the rounds. Okay. All right. So first round, if they go out too fast, the time is going to be low, yeah? Because it's really quick. So the time, round 1, is really quick. Let's call this 0 seconds, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150 seconds. How long it takes them to get one round done of whatever that workout happens to be. So they go out pretty quick. Second round, maybe they're still feeling okay there. And then they hit the wall, they hit a threshold. Because what they've done is this, we've gone about average maybe a minute over these first 2 rounds. They've used an energy system which is perfect for 60 seconds, for 2 minutes, sorry. They've used an inappropriate energy system, however, and then they hit the wall, and suddenly the rounds go like this. So they get a linear increase, or even an exponential increase in their round time. What they were doing in 50 seconds at the start, they've now added over 2 minutes to, because they've hit the wall. And if we look at their intensity during this point, they start off super high and they stay super high. So the intensity starts up here. They're working at a 6 out of 10 at the start, and then very quickly they're up here, and then they're just redlining all the way. This here, you can see where they've hit the wall, and you can see where this point correlates with their round time increasing. So we can actually graph what's happening. Round time gets slower, and the intensity is super high all the way. That is what a faulty pacing strategy looks like. And that's what most people do. There's an exponential increase here in the rate of perceived exertion, and a linear or an exponential growth increase in the round time. They're working harder, it's hurting more, they're slowing down. There's nothing good about that. Can everyone see how that's a pretty common pattern? And if we were to graph this, and you can do this on your phone just with a split timer, at the end of every round, hit lap. End of a round, hit lap. Then go back and look at it and see how they compare. And a lot of the programming I do, I will actually say each round must be within 20 seconds. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Or even if it's a 20 or 30 minute event, I'll say, okay, well, we split it in half. It's effectively 2 rounds. Your second round must be faster than your first, just to learn those pacing strategies. Who feels like they always go out too hard? Like they almost always go out too hard. You know my advice for you guys? Go out easier. Yeah, like if you always, that's so absolute, yeah? If you always go out too fast, this becomes a really simple fix for you. Just go out slower. And if it's still too fast, go slower. And practice going out way too slow and then go, no, I went too far the other way, until you find that middle ground and the pendulum comes back to where you want it to be. But it's so simple. If you always go out too hard, it's a really simple fix. Always go out a little bit easier. Same axes here, same variables, same labels on the axes. A linear increase in rate of perceived exertion. So now let's say we're going to start at a 3 as opposed to starting up at a 7 here. And that's what your effort level should look like. So at the end, you're working at a 10 out of 10. At the start, you're working at a 3 out of 10, gradually increasing. Our round times, instead of starting here and increasing and going through the roof, the first round is going to be a fraction faster because of transition time and that sort of thing. And then this is what should happen. Like that. This is a shallow inverted U there. So let's break down what this actually means. Firstly, if we look at the range between fastest round and slowest round, here it's huge. The range between fastest and slowest round here is very small. There's not a lot of range. We're having to work harder as we go to maintain the same round time. So let's say over here we're starting at 50 seconds. Let's say we are at a minute 20, about all the way. Now to hold that pace, for 3 rounds, that should be easy to hold, hey? A minute and 20 seconds for 3 rounds should be fine. And we can see that because we're only sitting at a 5 out of 10 there. But can you see that 4 rounds holding that pace would be harder? For 5 rounds, holding that pace would be harder. So our effort level, it gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder, but our output stays about the same. We have to work progressively harder to maintain the output, but maintaining output there is key. What's this about? How come we've gone faster at the end here?
So you can cross the threshold for the last couple of minutes? It's like when you sprint at the end of the race.
Yeah.
Go into the next energy source.
Into a more aggressive energy system. And what's the advantage of going into a more aggressive energy system? We can restore that phosphate molecule faster. But what's the negative of that? Can't do it for long. Hydrogen ions, your body starts to turn to acid. But by this point, you're inside the last minute. It's okay. Yeah, and that's exactly what we've got here. There's a linear increase in rate of perceived exertion with a shallow inverted U of output, aka round time. So you want to build the intensity to a maximum sustainable intensity, a maximum sustainable split, round pace. Then at the end, you want to cross that anaerobic threshold, which you can see is happening here. And this, we may even get a exponential sort of increase up like this. You cross that anaerobic threshold to take advantage of the higher yields of energy that are available there at the end. The higher yields that come from going into an anaerobic energy system. So some people will watch people compete and they'll sprint finish and they'll say, you had too much left in the tank. You didn't go hard enough. You were able to sprint at the end. Not the case. They could have been completely dead. And you guys will have felt this, yeah? You're rowing 2,000 meters and you're completely dead. You can always sprint that last 100. And you're doing that because you're crossing that threshold. You're going anaerobic. Unless you've really blown it and you're already a 10 out of 10. This guy here, probably already anaerobic here. He couldn't bring it down. His body was flooded with these hydrogen ions, flooded with acid. It was inhibiting that process of fast glycolysis. Couldn't do anything about it. The round speed kept increasing. But I bet his last 3 burpees would still have been fast. Yeah, because it's how it works. Here's the cool thing. Correct strategy equals less pain. Pain means you've reached a threshold. So if it's really painful and uncomfortable and you've hit the wall and it sucks, you've probably done something wrong. Sure, you can do that at the end and it'll progressively get more painful or more discomfort as you go. But if you're in pain early, you've hit the wall. And no matter how much you back up from the wall, the front of that car is still squashed. So stay away from those thresholds.